Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of BodyMind Living. I am so excited for our guest today. We have Miss Shana Hartman here with us today. I'm going to read her bio in a second. And I'm excited and a little bit nervous for our conversation today. In our most recent issue of BodyMind Living, we have been looking at what it means to navigate fear and uncertainty. Like, hot damn, when we set out to pick the topics for the issues, like, oh yeah, that'll be interesting. Little did we know what was going to be happening in the world when we made that choice. So I'm very excited for our conversation today. And just before we dive in, I think it's important to acknowledge that we are all living in a time when there is a lot of fear and uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Shana and I will dive into this and talk about this more as the conversation unfolds. And also, we really want to look back. I think today my intention, and I'm curious, Shana, your intentions for today, is I really want this to be a conversation where we can look for practical tools for how we navigate fear and uncertainty on a daily basis. That's really trying to find those little nuggets, those embodiment tips and tools and resources that I know you use, that I use, as a way for us to maybe really serve and support people who are going through periods of fear and uncertainty for themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Yes.
It's a big topic today. So without any further ado, let me share a little bit more about Shana. So Shana Hartman is our managing editor for BodyMind Living, as well as an embodied writing coach. Through her 20 plus years of mastering the power of reflection and intention, she discovered that we are our own experts regarding our body and mind if we simply learn to listen. Her favorite way to listen and get embodied is through writing. And I'll tell you, I'm on the receiving end of this. It's fun. In her experience as an owner and operator of Synergy Wellness Group, LLC, Shana knows this listening and writing is easier said than done. And we aren't meant to figure out this amazing life or body on our own. It takes practice, specific actions, and support. She loves to support strong, independent, female-identifying business owners in planning, writing, and finishing the books tugging at their heart to be shared with the world, one embodied step at a time. When she's not supporting others in her writing, she can be found snuggled up on the couch with her hubby enjoying homemade popcorn, yes, or an adventure with her family of 5, including her kids, a junior in college, a senior in high school, and a 4th grader. So follow her writerly breadcrumbs at Shana Hartman on Instagram, as well as shanahartman.com. All right. Where are you on my screen? You are over here. Hey. What's up? So can you, just to start this conversation, can you maybe think of a time in your life where you had to navigate fear and uncertainty?
Yeah, it's been both recent and I think as we were talking in preparation for this conversation, very much a part of specific moments in reflection in life. But most recently, the fear and uncertainty that I navigated was stepping away from, as you said in my bio, that 20 plus years of being in the world of education, specifically an English professor at a university. And on my journey, discovering that while that was where I needed to be for the time that I was there, navigating when something new arose and that new thing was amazing and equally terrifying at the same time. And so it kicked up all kinds of fear and uncertainty around who am I to make a change like this? I have a family. How does this impact them? While simultaneously holding this amazing, new, exciting discovery of coaching and having a business, and really realizing that the things that I was doing up until this time, I left my university position just this May, were not in vain. It was all a part of it. It was all a part of the journey. And so really finding myself amidst the unknowns and holding all of that at the same time kicked up a ton of fear and uncertainty in ways that I'm super grateful for and are still being figured out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Totally. And I actually, this popped up as you were sharing. So I know you are a word person.
Yeah.
Could you maybe define fear and define uncertainty in this context as we continue the conversation? I feel like that would be.
Yeah. So I think fear feels very visceral. It kicks up our physiology when fear shows up. So fear feels like the primal response or reaction that we have when at least it is perceived that we are in some kind of quote danger. And I know, we're going to get into kind of more macro level understanding of, certain levels of fear that I myself, given who I am, white, middle class, privileged woman, I don't experience in the same ways that many other people are and have historically. But we still have that fight, flight, freeze that often gets kicked up. And so to me, fear is in that world, either actual primal, my life is in danger, or most often my physiology is thinking that, feeling that, and experiencing that. Mm-hmm. Uncertainty feels like the inward stuff, the emotional, the mental things that are happening when that fear starts. So kind of a simplistic way that I talked about in this issue with the magazine is like a roller coaster, right? When I'm on the tick, tick, tick up for the roller coaster, fear is present. Or when I'm in the line going and watching people go on it and I'm like, my body is going, what are you doing? You are volunteering yourself to go on this thing that does not look safe, doesn't seem logical, all that kind of thing. So I'm getting all of those fearful potential, am I going to die kind of thoughts. Now, we know it's not true, but that's what happens. The visceral thing starts to happen. My heart beats, I might start sweating. I start to look, could I just leave? All of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Then that uncertainty is what comes in of like, well, what's happening next? What's going to happen? What do I do next? And it's that internal kind of questioning and not knowing the answer that kicks up afterwards.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me make sure I have this correct. So fear is kind of like the physical experience. And then that uncertainty is kind of like, as you said, the inner, I almost hear kind of like that. To me, there's a bit of a mindset part of the uncertainty of like, you can't put it together. Right. And just so you know, we intentionally put these two together. When we came up with this topic. So would that be kind of like fear is that physiological fight, flight, or freeze, and the uncertainty is kind of the mindset of what happens in the inner experience of that?
The part of you that's trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this and not die? Mm-hmm. Or metaphorically or actually.
Yeah. And I know, we've talked about this before. So Mastin Kipp says fear is a compass. Oh, sorry. Unless you are in mortal danger, fear is a compass showing you where to go. Mm-hmm. So let's just clarify that the situation we're talking about right now is the irony of the fear and uncertainty is the situation of you leaving your job. It wasn't you were in mortal danger. However, the physiological response felt like it, right? So how do you, so let me ask you this. So what was the physical experience that you had? Here you are 20 years as a professor. I mean, I should have introduced you as Dr. Shana Hartman, right? You have 20 years experience, you're a professor, like, you've made it. This is the path that you are meant to be on. What started to happen internally to that kind of keyed you into something had to shift?
Yeah. That's a great question, because even just sitting here now, I can, use my reflective tools and be pulled back years before, when I started to feel those tugs of like, is this the right place for me? And I'm actually just remembering a year into the position that I've been in for the past 14 years up until May, a year after being there, I had a very strong, like, I don't think this is the place for me, not leaving the university, period. And
I'm sorry, wait, that was 1 year into being there for 14 years. Okay, great. Just clarifying. Got it.
Exactly, right? And so, yeah. So I know we're going to come back to that. Those little tiny, deep, deep, deep. So what's interesting in that is I felt that tug, fear and uncertainty. Wait, you have a contracted job. You could stay here and you've got financial stability, quotation marks, heavily on the quotation marks there. You could continue. And then here's this tug, and I had zero idea of where I was applying to. And it wasn't just, oh, let me go find somewhere. I'm in North Carolina, some other place in North Carolina nearby. This was like, I was looking at Columbia, like I was looking at New York. I was looking at lots of different places. And then I met my husband. So that's really cool. And so then it was like, okay, things shift. But I feel like had I not taken that small step, it felt like a small step. Well, let's put some applications out there. Let's ask people, that kind of thing. That small step to just see, I feel like that's then where here's this other human, because, oh, by the way, I was single and 30 and all that kind of thing going on too. Here's this other human that gets to become a part of your life. And it's like, oh, wow, not expecting that, but that makes total sense. And here we go down the path. Then a few years later, similar kinds of things, just, okay, I'm tenured, I'm established, I could be here again forever. And those inexplicable, intangible, you can't always articulate them clearly, but you just feel that internal, it's often like a pit, kind of solar plexus. You just feel that like pull, like this isn't it. I don't know what it next is, but this is probably not it. And
so can we look at that moment?
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're talking, I know so many people, especially coming into like massage and holistic services, we have a lot of people that are like, I was in corporate. I had this, expected part of what Shana's actually helping me write my book.
Yay.
And really looking at, like, we kind of get onto these paths, like literally neural pathways of like, this is what is expected of you.
Right.
Right. And, part of what I've been learning about in my DEI work is like, how deep those expectations run and how those expectations kind of reinforce systems and structures that, perpetuate the very things that I think we're here to kind of fight against. But anyway, won't go down that rabbit hole right now. This path of expectations, and you get into the job, you get into the career, right? You do these things, and then you have this little nudge that's like, maybe this isn't for you. Like I'm cracking up that 1 year in, you intuitively knew this wasn't for you.
Right.
Right. What was that experience of having that knowing, like how did fear and uncertainty kind of dance in there? Because it sounds like you were dancing with them for a long time.
Yeah, I was, and I say we because my husband, there's some similar things that have shown up for him too in our family. And, it did feel like a dance, like as you were saying it, and those who can't see me, my body is like up and down, right? Like I'm in and here. And what's so interesting is, and we talk about this a lot in BodyMind Living platform and a lot of our writing that we do there, that our ambassadors do, it's not that anything was, quote, like horrible or completely wrong, or again, my genuine safety or anything like that. You just have this internal knowing. And you really get presented, what you start to realize is you do have a choice. And I know I didn't always feel that, but BodyMind, that program and becoming a BodyMind coach really helped me realize, where is the choice? Find the choice, acknowledge the choice, feel the choice. And for me, like kind of fast forward, I do kind of always attribute that I hit sort of a very late postpartum depression. And I really had a moment of like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand it, but it felt like the question then was like, should I still be here? You know, should I still be going? And that was where it was like, okay, you have a choice. And then I found massage. And then I found BodyMind coaching. And so those are like the little steps. Who would go back to school after having a PhD, 3 degrees, all these like trainings and certifications and all this kind of stuff, and then go back to part-time for 2 years, night school, where I was gone for like 4 hours. And yet, thank God I did, right? Thank God I did.
What was it that, like, you are dancing with this fear and uncertainty? What, like, in that moment of having, as you said, the late postpartum, like, what was it that finally allowed you to push into that, push past that and say, okay, it's time for me to do something?
Yeah. I mean, as a person, you know, person of faith and knowing there's something beyond me, I think it was definitely like allowing myself to name and recognize, because those of you who are in my community, you know, too, I very much have a Wonder Woman avatar about me. And so up until that moment, thank you, Wonder Woman, that served me very well, you know, independent, take care of things, do a lot on my own. And actually, I think it was realizing like that is no longer going to work. And so what will support me? And if it's not in what was happening, you know, having a job, having the family structure set up that way, then what would support me? And in that moment, it was go and do something just for you. So like, that's what the massage, I had zero, I didn't need another job. I didn't need a business. I didn't need anything. I had zero expectation of what I was going to do with it. But for those hours a week, I got to go and be in just a completely different environment and ultimately reconnect back with me. Yeah. Because when you're in something so long, who are you? Where are you? Especially if you have other humans you're taking care of, like, you get lost very, very, very easily.
Can I share something that I wrote down as you were talking?
Yes, please.
I think the download. This idea, this dance between fear and uncertainty. I think that a lot of times people stay in this dance because there's a belief that once I am certain, I will be able to move through the fear.
Right.
But the truth is, once I move through the fear, I will find my certainty.
Yes. And the recognition that the fear is not you, it's just showing up in a way that's saying, like, it's that choice. Mm-hmm. It's that choice. And so that fear that showed up around that deep, dark place, that deep, dark moment of like, should I be here? Should I not? And that's scaring the hell out of me. Knowing then I don't have a how, I don't know the next step, but I do have a choice. And I reckon like that fear is showing up for a reason, not just to like bring me down this forever and ever dark path. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And yeah, I love this conversation because I think fear gets a bad rap sometimes.
Right. We don't want it.
Fear's bad, right? And if you feel the fear, bad, right? And I have something I want to come back to, but we'll play with this. So, and you just shared there, like, fear is showing you something. Mm-hmm. You know, this is one of the things that we talk about in the BodyMind method of like, notice the energy, right? If that energy is trying to say something. So is that energy trying to say something? And as soon as like you just acknowledge the energy, it starts to change. So in this scenario, like when you were able to just kind of be present to the energy of fear, what was it saying to you?
What shows up, being on this side of it is just kind of the words like no more, like no more of living without you, Shana, in your life.
Yeah. And I almost feel the other thing that I wanted to come back to is like, and this is something that I feel like I've lived and experienced, like, I feel like there's like a deep fear of, can I be me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just be me?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? I mean, like, I feel like the most uncertain thing, and I know we've talked about this, I feel like as soon as I think I know myself, I no longer know myself because I put myself into a box.
Yeah.
Right. And there's this like, there's this simultaneous weird thing of like, is it really okay for me to be myself, for me to say the things I want to say and show up the way that I want to show up and be fully in myself and my body and my values and my life? Is that safe? Right. And it's like, we so badly want to like figure all the pieces out. And like, that is the antithesis of being yourself.
Right.
Like, am I making sense? There's a,
yeah. And I think too, this is where it starts to live beyond you. Right. So you, like, that's what we want for everyone, to be able to show up fully as themselves without like with acceptance.
Yeah.
And fully connected, fully present. Like when you learn that for yourself, like you want that from other people too, and you crave it. And it's really heartbreaking when for whatever reason, connected to you or beyond you, that someone feels like they can't show up that way. Yeah.
So coming back into your story, you finally started going to massage school. Mm-hmm. When did you actually tell people at the university that you were back in school? Did that happen while you were doing it? Like, or was it kind of like, it's over here?
It was, I mean, I wasn't like making it super every meeting or people I'd run into, my department knew and all that. And they were like, that's crazy. And then of course everyone's like, are you leaving? Are you leaving? And then it was simply, again, no intention. When I got finished, I was just like, hey, I can do this now. Let me know if anybody wants a massage. And then I think because I am who I am and was continuing to like, okay, this massage and having this business kind of on the side was great. There was still this little bit like, haven't quite landed, haven't quite found, maybe what's next. And then quite literally, your fabulous space just showed up in my world. I made a few clicks and then everything just started to sync up and I saw the pathway, like I started to see it, still very blurry, fuzzy, not sure, but I suddenly knew, oh God, I mean, I come from a teaching background, basically another form of coaching. I just do it in a different way. And then I have always been connected. Yes, massage was another thing to get connected to my body, but I grew up, an athlete. I danced, like my dad was a bodybuilder and owned a gym. Like the body was very much a part of growing up. And so all of a sudden it was like, Esther, in such a time as this, like all these things started to come together. And again, I think what's important is like those tiny little, let me just honor what is showing up. Let me just listen and let me ask for support. And let me do this thing that for whatever reason seems exciting and go back, and do massage school. These little tiny steps that don't necessarily have a clear, I am doing this for XYZ. Let me watch this video Laura says I should watch. And then here we are, all of these things coming together. And now I get to support other people in writing, which is why I came to be an English professor, because I love writing and I've always written in some form. why I'm, use the body and body mind coaching, because I've always been connected in some way to the power of the body. Why coaching? So
it's almost like all these little pieces and threads have gotten to show up into this like embodied writing process that you help people through. Like, do you feel like when you're helping somebody write that it's like a massage? Like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, when someone
there's some trigger points sometimes. Let me just tell you that much. Yeah.
Someone comes to the table, right? And that tissue, when you first start, it's like, like nothing. And a lot of times that blank page and the cursor blinking feels really hard. Like it is a really hard surface and a difficult thing to feel. But then as you just start feeling your way forward, type in some words. Yeah. I had not thought about it until now, but yes.
So, I have two questions of like, when did you finally make the decision to leave the certain path of being a professor and step fully into your own business and own work and bringing body work and coaching and writing into this amazing process that we all get to receive. If you guys didn't know, our ambassadors on BodyMindLiving.com, Shana helps them with their writing. She's our writing coach. So tell me how, because I feel like there's all these, you were dancing with it. You were kind of like stepping out. You stepped out and did massage. You stepped out and did body mind coaching, but you're still holding on to this like big thing.
Yeah.
What was it to let go of that? What was that experience?
Last fall. What year is it? What day is it? Last fall.
I kind of remember this too, by the way. But
go ahead. I know. I had been saying to myself, had been saying to other people who were, on a similar journey, other coaches, things like that, who were on a similar journey to me, like, it's coming, it's going to be the time. And it was officially when I said it out loud to my spouse. I said, I've decided, and it started with, I have decided that this is my last year and I'm not going to renew my contract. And
how did that go over?
Woo! I mean, it was a barrage of then letting someone else who knew this was coming, and it kicked up all the fear and uncertainty.
So you were dancing through it, and you finally been like you got to the place where you're like, I'm no longer letting this fear drive me. I'm going to step into it. I'm going to lean into the fear. And you found to find the certainty, which when you declared that, when you declared it though, it kicked up all of your partner's fear and uncertainty. Yes. Okay, great.
And then, and it reflects back to you, right? So then so it was like going back through it again for me, because, we get reflections from other people back on our own stuff. So I had finally shifted from fear meant I don't do the thing that I feel like I want to do, to fear was like, oh, this is actually what I should do, because it's so scary, or it feels so scary. And I just knew intuitively that as soon as that decision was made, things would start to shift. And so me just saying those words, even though it was for academic year purposes, it was in the middle of the year. So it wasn't like it was happening right at that second. But then I started to, I forgot about this, Laura. I had applied for another company, to be in a position, another coaching company, to be in that position. And simultaneously, Body Mind Living was evolving and shaping and coming to terms. So again, taking a step and then the thing coming from a different direction. Once all of that had panned out, simultaneously, the opportunity for me to step in as managing editor with Body Mind Living became an option as well. So all of a sudden it was like, I'm never going to leave this place. This is just me forever, to, oh my gosh, coaching, here's the way, to, but I can't do that, but let me keep trying to play and make it happen, to, I decide I declare it. I just said it out loud. It was just words on a walk, on the sidewalk in our neighborhood. To then opportunity, choice.
So again, you leaned into the fear and you made your aligned choice. Right. And that's when the way and the how and like the path started to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if we were to look at, I have like so many questions, but like if we were to look at, you know, again, fear is a compass showing you where to go. What is really fear? What do you think fear is really, this kind of fear? I'm not talking about like primal life or death fear. I'm talking about, there is a fear that I think we all kind of experience that is very much around this, like, here's what's expected of me. There's something over here. Is it okay for me to go and follow this? Right? That the fear of moving off the neural pathway of expectation and into fully being and living yourself. What is that fear trying to say? If you were to give that a voice? I have thoughts, but what do you think that's trying to say?
It seems like it's trying to say, are you open? It feels like I just see like a question mark, not even necessarily exact words, because I think it's so blurry and so different for everyone. But, you know, a visual of a door opening or a knock on that neuropathway door that's sewing, you know, no, this is who I am. This is what I do. These are my roles. These are my expectations. Yeah. And then when you get that, like, deep, deep, deep.
Well, so this is kind of an interesting conversation because now I am going to weave in. There is a lot of current events happening right now where a lot of people are being kind of, I would say, fear is an easy energy to manipulate.
Yes, to conjure up, to activate. Yeah.
Yes. So, yes. And I think when we look at, you know, media, and I mean, like social media, for me, I've had to put insane boundaries around social media right now because it can very much be a triggering place for me if I'm not careful, and it can ignite that fear response in me. So when we're looking at this, like, let's just be honest, there is a lot of fear circulating in all of us at this very moment of time, right? Like, we collectively are in this kind of fear response. And I guess I'll just own my opinion on this. I think a skill that all of us need to learn to practice is, you know, we need to learn how to practice discernment. And I think being able to understand and navigate the energy of fear is essential at this moment in time.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
If I'm honest. I have thoughts on this. Am I allowed to share more?
You are, of course.
Because I feel like this is one of the things that we talk about in BodyMind coaching. And I'm curious, your experience of this is like, I think first we have to understand what is the energy that we are in and operating from. Because if you are
we're aware, yeah,
right. Like, the thing about fear is that it can easily convince us that we're like doing a good thing when we're actually operating from a space of scarcity and fear.
Yeah. And lack. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like when you can say, like, okay, if I can ground myself, if I can just be like, what energy am I in right now? What energy am I acting from? Right. And what energy do I want to be acting from? Because I think, to me, when I ask this question of like, what is fear trying to say? I feel like fear often, and this again, the not the mortal danger fear, this reactive kind of fear that we all experience. I think it's trying to remind us of our values. It's trying to, I think it's trying to remind us of our humanity, you know, like, do you have thoughts on this? Like, like when I feel this, like, you know, I was listening to a podcast. I asked you your thoughts, and now I'm going to keep talking. I listened to this podcast where they talked about how even just reading a headline and before you click it, recognize the response that it gives you in your body is a great way to start to learn. And this is where writing comes in, right? Is a great way to learn, like, is somebody trying to manipulate my fear?
Right.
Like just reading a headline, if a headline ignites a like, right?
Yeah.
There's something in that. And to me, it's like, okay, if I see that reaction, to me, I'm like, it's hitting on a value of mine. This fear is trying to show me that there's something important that I care about. And I love how you said, I have a choice on how I choose to show up into this.
Right. So I hear fear is almost a reminder about awareness. Like, hey, are you present to what is around you right now? Yeah. Because if fear is showing up, then, oh, this is interesting. And it's going to be messy. If fear has shown up and we've been normed to mean, oh, I shouldn't do something, or something is wrong, or, this is bad. But shifting a little bit to my awareness, this almost like this is a superpower now. Great. I need to be aware. I need to become more present, which actually kind of kicks in with the primal fear. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. Like, hey, get open, get aware. What do we need to do? When we take that to more of my life is not in danger, but the mental health, emotional health kind of side of this, that in the holistic community, right? Personal development, all of that kind of thing. That's what we're doing. Fear then again becomes that knock, 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 that, hey, you need to be aware. You're making a choice right now. Is that your most aligned choice?
Yes. And I think you need to be aware. And I love that second part of like, and you have a choice.
Right.
And I think that almost leads into the uncertainty part of this, because one of the things that I've been hearing lately is like, I think all of us are feeling this sense of fear and uncertainty because we do genuinely want better.
Right.
Like, I don't doubt that every single person right now on this earth wants a better world for our children, I don't doubt that whatsoever. Now, we have different ideas of what that looks like or how to get there.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation. But I don't doubt that we all want what's better. And it's almost like, so I heard somebody say that the world that we all want to see is almost like a sci-fi movie. Like, because we've never really experienced it. And so there's this weird sense of that uncertainty starts to come in because it's different, right? It's the certainty that we have is what we were all experiencing in this moment. To have something better is actually, there's a level of uncertainty in this. So when we feel this fear coming up, it's like, hey, there's something important here. This scenario, this situation is tapping on something that is important to you, to your life, to your family, to your mission, to your vision. I'm showing you this because it's important. And you have a choice.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when I think of like to lean into that choice means we lean into uncertainty.
Right.
So one thing that I love to do in that moment is be like, well, what am I certain of? And I think I get to be certain of who I want to be and how I want to show up and the energy that I want to come from. Like, that's the choice that I get to make when fear and uncertainty shows up for me. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, as you were sharing, I almost heard the shift from the word of like, it's an opportunity, which again, we tend to give a more positive notion, which doesn't always match up with fear and kind of takes on that like put glitter on shit type of thing. Yeah. And we don't want that bypassing to happen. And instead what I heard was like call to choice. So it's that call, like, and you get to decide if you want to answer it, and explore and get curious, what am I certain of in this moment? My feet are here on the ground, I'm in a place of support and shelter. I've navigated this before. I've made a, uncertain choice before, not knowing what it was like. We get to reflect and respond from an aligned place. So the call to come back, because I think fear oftentimes, right? Like physically, I'm very visual. So I feel like, you can get pulled, right? You start to get pulled. Oh, let me go. What about this? This will give me the answer, or do I need to do this? Or do I need, that indecision can show up too in the midst of fear and uncertainty. And you just start to get stretched and pulled when what I hear kind of coming up in this conversation is a call to come back, a call to realign, a call to actually,
literally like take the breath, come back to the feet, and I think it's come back into presence, come back, into wholeness is a word we love to use. And I think this is, and I want to make this clear distinction, with this is not come back into your body and throw shit, throw glitter on shit,
right?
Or shit on glitter, whichever direction you want to go. But right, because one of the things we talk about in BodyMind Living is we do the inner work so we can do the outer work, right? And the outer work it's still messy, it's still hard. This is not pretty and fancy. I mean, this is looking at, there are very real systems and structures that exist to create disconnection. Mm-hmm. Right. So when fear shows up, I think I'm scared to say this out loud, and I'm very willing to be wrong. There is a very big energy of fear and uncertainty in the world. Mm-hmm. And I also feel within that such an opportunity that if we could be aware and come back into that realization that it's showing up because we have the choice, and we have the choice, right, to ground back into ourselves, to come back into our values, to come back into our humanity, to come back into our connection with earth, with others, with ourselves.
Yeah.
And then from there, choose who we get to be and how we want to show up to step out from there. Like, I just feel like that is one of the greatest opportunities that we have in this moment. And it probably means like saying things that are uncomfortable, establishing boundaries that aren't pretty. Yeah. Again, I've had to, social media is just, right? Like having to be very aware of where I get my information, who I listen to. Like, we have to be really mindful of it. And fear is something that it is so easily manipulated. Mm-hmm. I mean, even in business, sorry, now we're going down the rabbit hole. Now we get to talk about the real shit. Is that cool, Shana?
Absolutely.
There's a great podcast that I listen to with Brene Brown, and she talks about power. Mm-hmm. Right? There's power over, power with, and power to. One of the things we just went through our BodyMind coaching launch, and one of the things that I was really intentional with that entire launch and the emails that we wrote, right, the words right. and all that stuff, is I think there's a lot of marketing practices out there that kind of get somebody into a fear state and create power over when trying to sell.
Right.
And, one of the lenses that I went into this launch with was like, okay, we want to be intentional that we are here to create power with, and also, through BodyMind coaching, my whole goal in that entire program is to give power to people. And I mean, as business owners, and this is, I think, your wheelhouse as far as words, like, it is something you have to be really, really mindful of. You need to be mindful of your state, of where you're coming from. You need to be mindful of the state that you are creating with people around you. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where I'm going with this. I just...
Yeah, I
And
can
to say
share
that, yeah.
what you keep, as you keep sharing, like I just keep hearing connection. Like what if fear is a call to connection, a call to connecting back to yourself, a call to connect then with others? What if it's, almost here like the wake up call, right? If you're scared, something is getting shaken here. And so really heeding the call and really tuning back in, using your tools. And rather than that being the end, like, let me take my ball and go home. Fear being like that scarcity, that lack. I better go. I better hunker down. I better, batten the hatches, that sort of thing. What if it's that opportunity to step into that connected, recursive process of, okay, let me come back to me, and then let me see, who around me is needing this connection, or I need to connect with them, or that power with. That just showed up as you were sharing.
Yeah. And I think that's the uncertainty part.
Right. You don't know.
I love this. What if fear is a call to connection?
Mm-hmm.
And that requires us to really ground in and then lean into the uncertainty. And I think that's just I'm just so curious to that. And that's
Right.
a curiosity that I want to hold and feel into.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to, if you're open to it, you help business owners, entrepreneurs connect back into themselves and write their books.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's this, being on the receiving end of this, there is a deep fear of being seen, of speaking truth, of like letting the shadows, out.
Mm-hmm.
Why is writing and sharing your story from this embodied space, why is this important?
Yeah. Well, I know I'm still on the journey of that, but that I truly believe we are messaged beings. We're gathering and experiencing our entire life, and in BodyMind, we learned like those things are literally imprinted on us through fascia and pain and pleasure and all the things that we get to experience in our body. And I started to play with this idea of, typically when we write, we'll use something that connects, our hands. For those who are able, like we use our hands, and I feel like that connects our head and our heart. It's like literally this tool in between, or our voice, or some tool that allows us to activate those things and share this language. And so I want more stories than what I feel like are out there now from those perspectives, because no one can say it, no one can share it, no one can write it the way that you can, even if I've had the same exact experience or whatever as someone else. And that to me is just magic. And so now that it's so easy to create and share, and again, that's scary. And what's the call there? What's the connection opportunity there? And if my story shows someone else that their story is important, just the legacy and words, because if anybody's been in any kind of educational setting, we read stuff that's hundreds of years old. Like it lasts.
Yeah.
It lasts. And it's just really cool to think of the potential impact. And when one person, hears your words, reads your words, and has something, experience, I think writing is dialogical, and meaning it's not a static thing. Just because it's written doesn't mean it's done, because you came to it with your message self and presented it in this way. And then someone else gets to come with their stuff, and together new meaning gets to be made. And like, isn't that what we want? And just to continue. So writing is just this really, and language period has just always been fascinating to me because it's just this constant kicking up, I guess, of that fear and uncertainty. But I use the process of writing to explore that and see what gets to show up. And then when we do that with other people and they read it and we have conversation, like it just gets to continue and evolve from there.
I look back at, the books that changed me, the books where people were willing to lean into the fear and uncertainty and reveal and share and have that level of honesty. Like people feel that. People, it's changed me. I think the books that changed me were less here's the 1, 2, 3 how to do this.
Right.
The books that changed me were the ones that were like, here was my experience. Here was what I felt and my fears and my, just all the inner churnings, those are the books that changed me.
Yeah.
And the gratitude stories. We do. And the gratitude that I have for the people who are willing to, I think, step out of the expectations and step into just the journey. I have so much love and gratitude for them. Those are the ones, those are the books and the words that have resonated most for me and inspired me most. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. Is there any final words that you want to impart to our listeners today?
Oh, that's a tall order. No, I think
world peace in one sentence. Go for it.
So save the world in one sentence. Actually, maybe that is it. You don't have to save the world. You don't have to save the world with your, with one single action or one single step in the face of fear and uncertainty, or with your writing. And getting curious about what is the call, what is the choice that is showing up for you, either after this conversation or just what's showing up in your life, and how might you begin to explore that in a way that is safe for you, for those around you, and allowing that both and to show up for you. Because it's important and someone needs it. I need it, I want it, and I don't even know who you are. And so I know someone closer to you needs it and desires it. So, yeah.
Thank you. Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Yeah. My favorite place to be right now is on Instagram at Shana Hartman _. I do some weekly writerly breadcrumbs where people just get to kind of follow and explore what writing might be looking like for them. And then also over at shanahartman.com.
And I know you are currently starting a new cohort of embodied writers. So if anybody's out there listening, thinking about writing their book, please reach out to Shana.
Absolutely.
I can speak from experience of hot damn, it's a process and you want her help.
Awesome.
And it is very worth it. And yeah, from somebody who has been talking about her book now for like 5 years.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Now it's here. It's coming. Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming. So thank you so much, Shana.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.